was running 45 seconds. No Parole is still there. Shoplifted all out on the outside. And Mischievous Alex. It is No Parole trying to hang in there for another furlong. It's No Parole getting away now. No Parole's in front by 4. Then Shoplifted, Mischievous Alex, Echo Town, and Mayru. It's going to be a front-running score for No Parole in the Grade 1 Woody Stevens.
Welcome back to the Racing Rundown here on YouTube. I'm Eric DeCoster, and in this edition we'll be talking about the Grade 1 Alan Jerkins, the H. Alan Jerkins, at Saratoga, $300,000 purse, going 7 furlongs on the dirt course. This is one of 2 premier Grade 1s in New York, sprinting for 3-year-olds. Earlier in the year we had the Woody Stevens. A good amount of that field comes back in this spot, and now we have the H. Alan Jerkins. And we'll get right into it. We got a lot of horses to go through. 11 entered in total, all 11 likely to run. So we'll waste no more time, and we'll start with the one Hopeful Treasure, biggest long shot in the field on the morning line at 50-1. He was really consistent early on in his career in lower level maiden and allowance races. 3 wins and 5 career starts in 2019 and leading into 2020, his first start in February. But his last 2 races have been very subpar. He was 10th. With a weird trip, but that was about the only excuse, and he was probably overmatched nonetheless in an allowance at Churchill on the grass. Then he switched back to the dirt where he was 4th, only beaten 2 lengths in the Gold Fever, that listed stakes at Belmont, which a couple of these horses do exit. He was only beaten 2 lengths, however, he was probably 4th best on the day, and there's going to need to be noticeable improvement for him to have any chance in this race. He does switch to Manny Franco for the first time here, Mid-Atlantic Connections trained by Michael Pino, and there's not a ton telling me that this horse is going to step up and beat this group, but if you really liked that last performance enough, he might be a look underneath. The 2 8 rings, your Breeders' Cup Juvenile second choice last year, when he finished 6 out of 8 there. He's only had 1 start since that race in November. That was in April when he was 5th in the Bachelor, beaten 7 lengths. He was second last behind a horse in this race. Really good workouts. I think that's kind of the biggest point, the focal point about this horse, and he is getting to a distance that I think he probably will enjoy. He's never had the chance to run 7 furlongs. If you remember last year's Del Mar Futurity, he got bumped and lost the rider at the start here. He lost the rider at the start, bumping a couple other horses. Joel Rosario does get aboard for the second time. He was aboard for the Bachelor. This seems like a quirky horse, but Joel Rosario has 1 ride on him, so that might just give him the confidence to step back up. And as I said, he's working off the charts, visually very impressive. 3 of his last 4 works have been bullets at Del Mar and Santa Anita. 2 works back was the only time he didn't, and it was still a very good time he posted. But the layoff is a giant concern for me. For this horse, that last race wasn't very impressive, and the one thing I will say is he's going to be able to sit a nice trip, but I don't know if that's going to be enough for him to step up and win this race. The 3 Sonoman, another 50-1 shot. Really nice pedigree on this horse by Curlin out of the Grade 1 winning mare Zardana, who actually beat Rachel Alexandra a couple years ago. So some very nice pedigree. In his first start for Steve Ashton last time out, he was 2nd in the listed stakes. That sounds impressive on paper, but it was a 2-horse field, and he was beaten 19 lengths, pretty much eased up. When he returns here, he was coming off back-to-back wins and career starts 3 and 4, his maiden win and an allowance. Long layoff in between those 2 wins, though, from October to April. He did win the comeback, and then he ran poorly in that race at Belmont. He does like to come. He's a little lazy early on, I will say that. He likes to close from way off the pace. That last race just didn't suit him well. It was never going to set up well for him. He needs a target to run at, and in a match race, it wasn't going to set up well for him. So I'm willing to draw a line through that easy goer, because that was just a weird race for a horse like this. He's going to be much more in his element here, and he's a winner going 7 furlongs. But I think there's a big just talent gap between him and the best horses in this race. And I do really like I said, I like that he's getting back to 7 furlongs. There are some good things. Second start with Steve Asmussen, that's a pretty good angle. But there's just so much that he needs to do as a horse to improve to beat this group. But he might be able to come late with a big pace collapse. I'm just not expecting it. The 4 Echo Town, your likely second choice in this group, was 2nd in the Grade 1 Woody Stevens in his last start. No match for the winner, No Parole in that race. Kind of an every other horse, 6 career starts. He won his debut, his third race, and his fifth race with on-the-board finishes in career starts 2, 4, and 6. This is 7. So if you really adhere to the every other theory, this horse should be looking at an easy win. This is a very classy sprinter for sure. They've kept him sprinting, and it's done him well. He has a grade 1 placing. Not actually a stakes winner, but he's been very close behind Tom Amos's two talented sprinters, Long Weekend and No Parole, with wins against some decent horses like Digital, Maru. Both of those horses are stakes placed. Even earlier on in his career, he lost to some good horses and he beat some good horses. So there's a lot to like about this horse. A little light on speed figures, but I'm not a big speed figure person myself. So if you are a person who relies heavily on speed figures, this one might not look great on paper to you, but the numbers don't lie in terms of his consistency, and I do like that he's going to be able to sit a nice trip off the pace, and I do like that Ricardo Santana Jr. is aboard. The 5, Mischievous Alex, was 4th in the Woody Stevens last time out. He probably needed that race. He was coming off a small layoff, about 3 months in between races after wins in the Gotham and Swale, in addition to a listed stakes as a 2-year-old at Parks on a 3-race winning streak there. But those wins in the Gotham and Swale were very nice. You could easily tell he was a 1-turn, 7-furlong mile type, and those were nice wins against some horses that came back to do some nice things like Chivalry and Untitled. But last time out in the Woody Stevens kind of got taken out of his element. I think this is a horse that needs to be on or near just off the lead. I mean, first or second by a half length, really his limit. They took him back in his last start, and that kind of compromised him, and he wasn't able to get the job done there, finishing 4th behind No Parole, Echo Town, and Shoplifted, who is also in this race. Irad Ortiz Jr. does ride back not from that last start. He rode him 3 races ago in his Swale victory, and now he is back aboard today after 2 starts off of him. In his wins, he's looked very impressive. He's looked like one of the better sprinters in the crop, but he's got to get to the lead, and he's got to challenge. Problem is, there's a lot of speed in this race, and that concerns me a lot with Mischievous Alex. If he does not get to the lead, he's already done for, but now that he's going to have to really fight for it, he's going to have to, go head-to-head with some other classy sprinters who show a lot of speed early on. I just worry about it. He's gotten away with some pretty light fractions against easier groups, talented groups, but easier than the one he's facing. So I have my reservations about Mischievous Alex, but if he returns to that Gotham and especially that Swale form, he has every chance in the world here. The 6, No Parole, you've heard his name enough. Now it's time to talk about him. He's 5 for 6 lifetime. His only loss came in the Rebel in March. Back-to-back wins since then, a very easy allowance win at Oaklawn, a paid workout, and the Woody Stevens last time out, a nice win there. I was very surprised that horse did not go off favorite in that race. But there's no more secrets about this horse. They know it. People know what they're going to get. He's going to be hammered at the windows on Saturday. 9 to 5 morning line, I imagine. It will be right around there. Working super nicely into this race. He's coming off a bullet work up at Saratoga, and now he gets to run over the track. This is a horse who has a lot of early speed. And he's going to be able to carry it the full 7 furlongs, just like he did in the Woody Stevens. Woody Stevens, he did get away. He had everything go his own way. I have a hard time believing they're going to let him have that easy of a lead this time round. But he's so classy that he's going to be able to carry it. The problem is, I just wonder if you refer back to Chancelot's run in this Alan Jerkins last year, that was the perfect example of a horse who has the ability, but he got kind of caught up in a speed duel early on, or he had to go really fast, work really hard on the front end. He was carrying it last 50 yards. He got really tired and got mowed down late. I wouldn't be surprised to see the same thing happen. That being said, if they let him go, if they let No Parole go like they did in the Woody Stevens, the race will be over. And you'll be able to, we'll know what kind of race No Parole will be running within the first 150, 200 yards, first furlong, what we're looking at. If there's nobody going with him, the race is going to be over. If he's alone on the lead, if he has some pressure, some presence, it's anybody's game at that point. But on paper, No Parole is the horse to beat. The 7, Shoplifted, was 3rd in that Woody Stevens last time out. It's really weird to say that this horse is multiple grade 1 placed, but he is, because he's been well beaten in a lot of his efforts. You just got to look at the past performances to see 3rd beaten 5.5, 5th beaten 8.25, 4th beaten nearly 9 lengths, all in stakes company. This horse has been in stakes company since his maiden win at Saratoga last year. And then he was 2nd in the Hopeful Well, beaten by stablemate Basin at that last year. So he has good runs at Saratoga and good runs in New York in general. A 1st, a 2nd, and a 3rd, 2 in grade 1s. But he's easily been far below the winner's ability in all of those races. the one really nice thing about this, though, is he's going to have something to run into. And that Woody Stevens, he had no pace to run into by No Parole standards. For some other sprinters, that might be too quick early on or it's like for No Parole, that was going easy. So if No Parole gets really challenged early on, Choplift is going to be able to come closing late. A lot of his races were 2-turn, mile and a 16th, mile long races. That's not his element. The pedigree says it all, being by Into Mischief, out of a Yes Is True mare. This horse wants to sprint. And he's got that quick turn of foot going 7 furlongs, but not when he stretches out. So there's a very good case to be made for this horse as a long shot. Tyler Gaffalione having a great meet. Steve Asmussen always having a great meet everywhere he is. This horse is live. If you think there's going to be a pace meltdown, he'll be coming late. The 8 is 3 Technique. Very nice horse, a winner at Saratoga last year when he broke his maiden career start number 3. His only other race at Saratoga was a second in another maiden race before his maiden breaking score where he lost to Basin. So very nice form at this track. He followed that maiden win up with an allowance score at Aqueduct, and then a second in the Smarty Jones in January, followed by a 4th in the Rebel last time out. That Rebel, draw a line through it. He was way too close to a pace that was way too quick. There was no way he could withstand that. Expect him to be coming from off the pace here, getting back to 1 turn, and I think this is a horse that's going to have a real good chance to run him down late. His wins have been very impressive, and he has excuses in his losses, either being, second best like he was to Basin, but also no pace to run into, and he still closed very well. Races like the Smarty Jones 2 starts ago, he ran a winning race. The winner was just never getting caught because that horse set a very slow pace, and that gave him so much energy late that 3 Technique wasn't ever going to catch him. And then the Rebel, I already said, kind of was way too close to a quick pace. And this is a horse that runs well off the layoff. Using layoff lines from past performances, you see a lot of good performances despite them. So it doesn't worry me here. I think this is a horse with a big chance, and his trainer wins very well off the layoff, and Jose Ortiz, as always, riding very well. The 9, Liam's Pride, coming off a win in the Gold Fever last time out at 13-1 when he upset Long Weekend in that listed stakes at Belmont. That was a nice win by this horse, but he still needs to take a lot of steps up visually, speed figure-wise, and competition-wise if he wants to factor in this race. Draw a line through that race 2 back. That was on the grass, a very muggy grass course. He had no chance there, so you can draw a line through that, but even if you do there, you see 2/4 well beaten down at Oaklawn in Allowance Company, losing to No Parole, where he was very well beaten by him and a couple other sprinters 4 races ago now. So really a big step up is needed. He beat a very light group. He's going to come from off the pace. So he's another one of those. There's a lot of horses in the race. I've touched on that. If the pace melts down, they could come running late. But this horse has that every opportunity to do that. I just don't know if he has the ability to. The 10 is Captain Bombastic, another Jeremiah Enkelhart in here. He has 2, the 8-3 Technique, and this horse, a New York bred stakes winner last time out when he took to Mike Lee at Belmont in June. So about a month and a half off, and now he returns in this spot. Never off the board in 6 career starts. Like I said, he's a New York bred. He has ran 4 of those races in New York bred company with 3 wins and a third in a very weird race last December at Aqueduct. In his 2 open company races, he has stretched out to 2 turns when he was second behind Tyshawn, who was a graded stakes placed horse this year on the Derby Trail, and Pneumatic, who finished 3rd or 4th in the Belmont, 4th in the Belmont earlier this year. So very nice form behind this horse. He's faced some really good horses, and he's beat some good horses in New York bred company. If you follow New York bred stakes races closely, you know who this horse is and the horses he's been able to beat this year. This is a nice look if you think he has the ability to put it together. Like I said, he lost to 2 really good horses in open company. Light on speed figures, really good works coming into this race, so that is always boding well. Javier Castellano aboard. You can always trust him at integrated stakes at Saratoga. And, like another one. This horse is going to be a little closer. He's probably going to be stalking. I imagine, like I said, quite a bit of speed, so this is one you can expect to probably be sitting, I don't know, about 6th or 7th, but only about 3-4 lengths from the lead. He's going to have an outside trip too, so he has every chance in the world setup-wise. It's just going to be whether or not he can beat these top-level sprinters. I think he has a chance if he's good enough on the day. The 11, Tap It to Win, expect him to take a lot of money. He took a lot of money in the Belmont last time out when he was 5th, beaten 14 lengths after setting a quick pace in that race, the opening leg of the Triple Crown this year, going a mile and an 1/8 as well. So He's coming out of 2 route races going 1 turn. Now he cuts back to a sprint going 1 turn, a unique situation. But he was coming into the Belmont off of 2 straight wins and a state bred allowance at Gulfstream sprinting going 6 furlongs and then a mile and a 16th race where he beat nice horses. Country Grammar, the 3rd place finisher, just came back to win the Peter Pan at Saratoga. Mystic Guide's a very talented horse. He lost that race. He's still on the Derby trail, I believe. So Capital Win beat some nice horses there. One thing I do worry about with this horse is getting back to sprinting. He is a 2-time winner going 6 furlongs, including his maiden win at Saratoga. However, pedigree-wise and how he's visually looked in the races, I think he's a 2-turn miler, up to a mile and 1/8, mile and a quarter is probably not out of his reach. I just think he went way too fast in the Belmont, and that's kind of what did him in. I just don't like him sprinting. I much rather would have seen him run and take on the big boys in the Travers. I would have given him a much bigger chance there. However, he has ability and he knows how to sprint. He's done it before. And because he's sprinting, I do think he's going to get more of a stalking trip rather than challenging the leaders like he has been in races like the Belmont and that allowance to win 2 back. John Velasquez does ride back. He has a win over the horse. Mark Casse has been very weak at the Saratoga meet so far. Coming into Thursday, when I'm recording this, he was 0 for 12 so far. So that's not very impressive. On to the pace setup now. Obviously a loaded race, a lot to factor in here pace-wise. No Parole. He's going to be number 1. That's where he's going to be early on in the race. But the real question is who comes to challenge. I think Mischievous Alex is going to put himself in the game early on. I think he's going to throw it down with No Parole. John Service had to have learned the lesson. He got beaten on the spot in the Woody Stevenson not challenging No Parole. He's got to throw it down with him early on to give his horse a chance. Echo Town and Tap It to Win, they're going to be stalking no more than a length and a half off the lead. Very, very much in the game early on, and then go back to horses like Captain Bombastic and a couple other of the stalkers I've talked about, like Liam's Pride, as well as the horse breaking from the rail, Hopeful Treasure. The rest are closers. Expect them to come from off the pace. And that brings me to my pick. I'm going with 3 Technique on top. I think I'm willing to take a shot. No Parole. He's definitely the class, the field. On paper, the most likely winner, but I worry about his speed duel a lot. So I'm going to take my shot against him, go with a closer. I think he's going to work out a nice trip. I'm going to go 3 Technique on top. After that, I will go No Parole and Echo Town, chalky underneath the long shot. They both are consistent, hard-trying horses every time. Hard to leave them out of the top 3 when all they know how to do is finish in the money. Another long shot to consider, Captain Bombastic. He's obviously had a very nice year, and I'm very much against 8 rings in this spot. He's 8-1 in the morning line. I personally believe he's going to take some money. He's going to be lower than that, not by too much, like 6 or 7-1. Either way, I think he's going to take money, and I think he's an absolute play against. That's all I have for you on this edition of the Racing Rundown. We'll see you later this week. We have a lot of good previews coming out, a lot of fun races like the Whitney and the Personal Lenson coming up. So stay ready for those, and we'll see you next time here on the Racing Rundown.